Hey everyone, my name is Joel Semenyuk. I am the Chief Strategy Officer here at Communitech, located in Kitchener-Waterloo. For those of you not from the region, that's just about an hour away from where you're sitting today in Mississauga. And I was asked to give a keynote today, but unfortunately I couldn't be there in person, so I decided that it might be appropriate to try to deliver this with some technology. So here I am, and I'm going to be talking today a little bit about innovation ecosystems. You know, I actually started my career in 1993 at Air Command Intelligence, located in Winnipeg. So we were literally the intelligence organization for everything that was from the ground into space at the time. And you know, it's kind of weird because I grew up on a farm, and I had watched this movie called War Games with Matthew Broderick when I was young. And that's kind of how I decided to become a computer scientist. I thought it would be great to become this hacker and work with, you know, the Whopper computer that was playing, AI-driven war games, potentially cause the world to end. It's weird, but here I was, you know, a number of years later, working at Air Command, literally straight out of that movie, and I was given this job to figure out how to take satellite images off of these giant laser discs that were given to us at the time. So it took a while, but once we figured out how to actually source those images from this, this giant, essentially CD-ROM, it was literally 2.5 feet across. It was massive. It literally changed the intelligence process, or at least the intelligence briefing process. And I was like, wow, like here I am, first year out of a job, and I helped change the way intelligence was briefed to commanders at an intelligence division. Like, that's pretty cool, and I was hooked. I from there, dedicated my entire career to figuring out this innovation thing, which we didn't call at the time. I don't know if I remember thinking about the term innovation as it was at that particular time, but certainly it's been a passion of mine since. And one of the things that I've realized, since then, and probably along the way, is that innovation is, well, it's hard. It's like really hard, like super hard. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. It turns out that 54% of all executives really struggle to align their innovation with their strategy. And 72% of those executives do not feel that they are out innovating their competitors. You probably have seen this stat or something similar to this before, that 92% or only 8% of startups succeed, 92% of them fail. But more broadly, only 5% of product innovations succeed. And that's not just product innovations from startups. That's product innovations from everyone, right? And that's pretty crazy. Think about this. This is from, you probably have seen these products before, and this is from Amazon, right? They have like ginormous budgets for R&D and ginormous budgets for marketing, and they get it wrong a lot. The Amazon Fire Phone flopped, Pets.com flopped. They had a travel booking thing flopped. I actually thought that, where is that, my finger? That the Amazon Dash button would actually work. I thought it was cool. I was going to buy one, and I didn't, but it flopped. It was kind of a cool use of IoT technology, but it didn't work out. But it kind of goes to show you that innovation isn't guaranteed for anybody right now. I mean, has anybody ever purchased the Apple glasses thingy? I don't know. I don't think that's going to go very far. Anyway, and even if we broaden this out, from innovation to even just digital transformation, 84% of all digital transformations fail. And even those that succeed, 75% of those are like, meh, they're kind of mediocre. They don't really blow the doors off of anybody. That's kind of sad. And, this leads to the inevitable. Most executives aren't very happy with innovation. Only 6% of them are saying nailing it. So certainly not a global success story. But yet We're still spending a ton of money on it, like a ton of money. It's estimated that in 2026, we're going to have spent 3.4 trillion with a T dollars on innovation, all forms of innovation. That's a lot. Just to put that into perspective, Canada's GDP is $2.4 trillion. So this is $1 trillion more dollars than Canada's GDP for innovation. Well then, there's got to be a good reason that we're doing this then. There's got to be a good reason why everyone is racing to spend money of this sort on things that will likely fail. Well, it turns out there's a whole lot of reasons. I mean, here's just one stat. If you compare the income growth for organizations that are digital leaders versus not digital leaders, you're going to see that it's actually double, right? The income growth for digital leaders are double that of non-leaders. That's pretty significant, right? That's not a 5% increase. That's like a, whoa, that's crazy increase, right? And we're starting to see even greater investment being put into innovation from a priority perspective. We're starting to see CEOs going, no, we actually have to embrace this stuff, and they're investing more energy and more time and making it a strategic a priority for their organization. Let's just consider AI. And I'm not equating AI with innovation, but certainly AI should be considered in our innovation strategy because it's kind of going to change everything, right? And McKinsey also thinks this as well. In fact, they predict that the front runners, those who have jumped on the adoption of AI and the use of AI, will certainly absorb the majority of the early costs for this emerging technology, but will have exponential returns compared to followers and laggards who were just going to die, it seems, according to their report. And we've been hearing about this a lot, right? This is a picture from Hannover Messe. I had gone to that conference a number of times. This is in Germany with Microsoft and believe it or not, Toyota, where we started to see this emergence of tech companies like Microsofts of the world in this manufacturing world, because we had been talking about this thing called, Innovation 4.0, and manufacturing 4.0, if you will, and the advent that something is going to change. We're going to be rethinking everything. And again, this is better categorized in something that's been also called Industry 4.0. And everything that we are going to see and do and live and the economics that are around that are completely going to change. And so we're starting to see this obviously in things like cars. But is this a car, or is this really just, a computer that you can drive, right? It has literally quite rethought the way that we experience car driving. Sure, it still has a steering wheel and it has seats and stuff like that, but we're starting to see this deeper integration with data and sensors and artificial intelligence and the experience of driving change over time, right? And in fact, we're not just seeing that on the driver side of things, we're seeing it on the engineering side of things as well. So for example, Toyota Research Institute unveiled a generative AI-powered vehicle design tool. So now I can use Gen AI to help me design my products more effectively. In this case, it was taking a look at how we might want to optimize aerodynamics and being able to use generative AI during the engineering process to optimize for that one particular variable. And you can apply this in a whole bunch of different ways. Like this is a part. It's a connector part of some sort. I don't know what kind of part that is, but it's something that you would see on any factory or even in my dad's, wood shop. Like a part that looks like this. But what if we were to look at this part through the eyes of generative AI? And we asked generative AI, like, how might you think about redesigning this part that has less weight, less mass, and is stronger. And maybe we actually feed it a whole bunch of data points that it can actually use to calibrate what that would actually mean. And perhaps it would generate something that looks a little bit like this that I can print with my handy-dandy metal 3D printer. But maybe we do some additional tests, some data gathering, and we have even more information to feed it and say, hey, could you make it even better, even more strong, even lighter, and it would come up with something that looks like this. This is alien stuff, right? I think I saw this in a movie once. It was called Aliens. Like, it's just kind of abstract stuff that, you know, as a human, we could really never do this. Well, maybe some people can, but most people can't get to this level of design, especially data-driven generative design that we're seeing coming out of the AI world. Well, this is all part of that thing that we've been talking about, this innovation thing. But I do want to make some clarifications with regards to what innovation is. Well, first of all, invention is not innovation. I can invent something, right? Some sort of handy-dandy widget, special solution, but it's not really innovation at all, right? Innovation comes from adoption. In fact, there is no innovation without adoption. We actually have to put it to use to get value out of it before we can consider it to be innovation. So if it's not in use and we're not getting value from this new thing, it's really just an invention or an idea. And that's certainly not an innovation. The other thing that we've realized with innovation is that innovation, right, the adoption of innovation happens slowly, then suddenly, right? It starts to trickle in, it sneaks up on you, and then boom, everything changes, right? And this is kind of well described across human history. So we can take a look at all these big industrial revolutional phases. We can go all the way back to electricity. And if we think about electricity, how was it first adopted in manufacturing, in factories, for example? Well, the first thing that they did was replace their oil lamps with light bulbs. Of course, this made working in the factory better. There's likely less oil fires. The quality of work was higher, better lighting, safety, all that kind of good stuff. But it really didn't change the way that the factories worked, right? Like, it still had a shaft that powered a whole bunch of pulleys and a whole bunch of gears and stuff like that. And for the most part, the factory workers worked in the exact same way that they did before the light bulbs. Well, the next wave of adoption of electricity for the factory is they replaced the steam engine that was required to power this big, long shaft that kind of went through the factory that powered all the other machines at the same time. They replaced that steam engine with an electric motor. Okay, that's great, right? So less, noise, less pollution, higher uptime, all that kind of good stuff. And, it resulted in lots of efficiencies, but it fundamentally didn't change the way that the factory worked. There's still, the factory workers still kind of did their thing in the same way as before. But it wasn't until they decided to rethink the factory with an electricity first mindset, right, that completely changed the game. When you started to say, well, maybe we don't need to power this one shaft, we can actually distribute a whole bunch of motors throughout the factory and have different things powering different other things in different ways, right? And that completely released everyone from this design of this factory style into a new way of thinking with regards to factories and production. And that one change unleashed a new way of thinking that led to mass production. And if you think about it, the innovation that came from mass production, the impact that we saw from it, didn't come from the invention of the motor or from the car or from the wheel or from the basic mechanics or even from electricity. It came from rethinking how we use these things. That's the innovation part of it. That's where the change happens, right? It's not the invention. Like, Henry Ford didn't invent the car. Henry Ford didn't invent the combustion engine, nor did he invent electricity or any of this stuff. It's the way that he deployed these inventions that became innovation, and it unlocked everything. It led to new ways of thinking of mass production and resulting in a world that's unrecognizable today. The way that we think about electricity and mass production and consumer goods and what we do on a day-to-day business basis could not have been further from where we were 100 years ago. And it was really because we have changed the way that we thought about deploying these inventions in a new innovative way that actually made all this change. You know, there's been a couple of attempts to visualize the way that this flows, and I really like this diagram from Strategizer. It talks a little bit about the innovation process, where at one point there's invention, where I'm exploring solutions to problems, and this is a very accurate diagram of what that looks like. It's very rarely a linear path between, oh, I have an idea, to, hey, let's go and make $1 billion from it. It goes through a lot of innovations. You're searching for solutions, you're searching for markets, you're searching for business models. And then once we figure that out, we still have another problem, right? We have to go from searching for a solution to a problem or a market or something like that, or the invention part, to exploiting it, right? The exploitation of this solution is also you know, the place where we're going to get value from. This is where we capture the value and the outcome of all the work that we've been doing to get to this point. But interestingly enough, we kind of work in a few different modes when we're trying to innovate, right? How we explore as human beings is completely different than how we're going to exploit the solutions that are going to be coming out of you know, these inventions. And certainly there's a point in the middle between exploration and exploitation that becomes, well, it becomes the transition point that is also critical for organizations to master. And from my experience working with hundreds and hundreds of organizations over the past 30 years, this is where innovation fails. It's rarely on the ideation side. It's rarely on the invention side. It's almost always on the transition between, you know, invention to exploitation is really where we see things getting caught up, really kind of getting bunged up, right? And I don't have to go very far to cite a whole bunch of examples. You know, I'm going to bring up Kodak. Everybody brings up Kodak, but it's a really great example of where this falls down. It wasn't like Kodak didn't know digital photography was coming to eat its lunch. It actually invented the first megapixel sensor, digital sensor that went into digital cameras. So it actually had a lot of exploration, and it had proven that, you know, it was inventing new ways of displacing itself. Where it got caught up was, you know, they didn't want to disrupt their existing business. It was the exploitation of that, the adoption of that, that prevented this organization from capitalizing on that invention and really being an innovative company. And we can cite many other examples of this, like Blockbuster, like Sears, like Sony and the Walkman, right? Who still uses one of those? Like BlackBerry. It wasn't like we didn't see this change coming from Apple and Google from, you know, a new way of using phones, but it just didn't adopt this mindset fast enough. So what we actually need to do, though, is change our mindset a little bit. If really adoption is the bottleneck for innovation, then what we really need to think about is how might we integrate our inventions, per se, into a new way. You know, there's thousands and thousands of ideas that are out there, but how might we actually figure out how to choose those and combine those in new ways? In fact, what we want to do is increase the surface area of these ideas so we have the most vibrant pool of invention to pull from that will allow us to innovate. And this is where the innovation ecosystem comes into play. Like, the innovation ecosystem really is that surface area. We just released the strategy this past year called It Takes an Ecosystem to emphasize how important innovation ecosystems are with regards to the vibrancy and the resilience of organizations as they progress. And it's not just me who's been saying this, right? Again, this has been studied. Organizations that have invested in ecosystem engagement through open innovation practices and others see about a 30% reduction in time to market for new products compared to companies that do not or did not. And typically, they'll see a 5% higher growth rate. That's pretty fancy. A prime example of this is Siemens. They created a program called Next 47, where they decided to collaborate with startups globally. And they reported a 30% increase in new product introductions, and it actually contributed to a big chunk of their $83 billion revenue from the innovations that emerged from those collaborations. Another reason to engage with innovation ecosystems through, again, things like open innovation is a reduction in R&D costs. So not only are we more efficient in producing new products, but our R&D costs go down by 15 to 20%. And we have about a 20% higher ROI on our innovation investment. Again, compared to organizations who do not engage with an innovation ecosystem through open innovation practices. Great example of this is Procter & Gamble in Connect and Develop. They sourced ideas from external partners that they work with all the time, and this led to over $3 billion in new sales and over a 60% increase in innovation productivity. Pretty phenomenal, actually. What about organizational resilience, right? The ability to adapt to change. Again, those organizations that are deeply embedded and leveraging the innovation ecosystem have a 30% better chance of adapting to industry disruptions because you're doing it together through positive sum interactions with your partners. And McKinsey also suggests that you have you're 2 times more likely to be an industry leader over a 10-year period as a result of that. And this makes all the difference in the world, right? So a really great example of this is Lego Ideas. And by the way, Lego Ideas was a program that was started in the mid-2000s. I mean, in 2003, Lego was about $800 million in debt and very close to bankruptcy. And the Lego Ideas concept was born. And it was actually invented by a pair of Canadian sisters, believe it or not, who now live in Victoria. I haven't talked to them in a while. But I'm proud to say that I learned a lot from this group. Lego Ideas was essentially an open innovation platform that resulted in 300% faster product development, and that allowed Lego to certainly recover from where they were and be more responsive to market trends and market needs. And certainly, my children enjoyed the results of this labor for many, many, many years. I have 2 boys, they're adults now, but I don't think a Christmas went by where we didn't invest in our Lego sets for them and their future. Now, I wonder where you would find a vibrant innovation ecosystem that you can tap into to do all this stuff. You're in it. You're actually in one of the world's most vibrant innovation ecosystems. The Toronto-Waterloo corridor has been ranked extremely high with regards to our vibrancy and our ability to produce innovation and partnerships that result in innovation because of the collaboration that we see within it. This is from a report this year from CBRE, which ranked Toronto as 4th behind San Francisco, like the Bay Area, Seattle and New York when it comes to talent, tech talent. And Waterloo's right up there as a small little town. On the world stage, we are punching well above our weight at number 18. And combined, we are unmatched when it comes to North American innovation ecosystems. If you take a look at just where we're situated, 1 hour drive, from Waterloo is going to get you to Toronto and Buffalo and Chicago and Detroit and New York and Boston and Montreal. Those are big markets. So geographically, it has a lot of advantage just kind of being where it is. However, one of its biggest advantages is its talent density, right? We've got this massive talent ecosystem that's here. 16 universities in the Toronto-Waterloo corridor, 473,000 students, resulting in about 315,000 tech workers. That's a lot, right? And if you actually scale it right down to Waterloo, we have about 92,000 students here a year, and we have 10,000 students just in the University of Waterloo's engineering program, which is actually the largest engineering program in Canada. There's no doubt that Google has their campus like right next door to these universities, is because of the vibrancy of the student and talent that emerge from here. And if you're interested in AI, which I'm really hoping you are, because it's going to be important, Toronto ranks very high when it comes to AI tech talent by markets. Pretty much on par with LA and Boston, obviously lagging behind San Francisco and Seattle, but certainly on the world stage when it comes to density of tech talent in this particular region. Now, let's just focus on Waterloo a little bit, and I have to say that because I work out of Waterloo, and it's a really important market for a lot of our partners nationally as well as internationally. But we're actually the third fastest growing tech market in North America, right? We saw 46% growth of tech jobs from 2018 to 23, and we've outpaced cities like New York, Los Angeles, and the Bay Area. Again, we're a small population, sub-million people in this region, so we're performing quite well on this result. We have the fourth highest concentration of tech talent, again, in North America, of 9.6% of all workforce being in tech roles. That's fourth overall in North America. We have about 9,100 new tech workers over the past 5 years, and that surpasses Boston, Salt Lake City, and San Diego. And we're top in demographic growth. We're a bit of a gravity well for attracting, really young, vibrant demographics. We saw a 29% increase in growth of residents in their 20s, and over a 20% increase in residents in their 30s, which is by far the highest in North America. So we're this gravity well of talent. This is where people want to be. We're a nice small town. There's some magical stuff happening here. It kind of reminds me of, I spent a lot of time in Seattle, Redmond, this being this offshoot from this major Seattle center. There's something magical there. There's something special there. This is what we have here in Waterloo as well. Now, one of the reasons for that, of course, is the ratio between the cost and the quality of the tech talent. So it really does cost much less to get a really high quality tech degree in the Waterloo region. Take a look where we stand. Of course, there's a lot of Canadian universities that are on this spectrum, but certainly Waterloo being amongst the top ecosystems producing the really very, very high grade talent. Not quite exceptional yet, but I would argue that, but certainly for much, much less. So it makes a total sense that the stats that I just showed you are amplifiers of some of the magic that we have in this particular ecosystem. So if I were to help you kind of put all the pieces together, right, I want you to think a little bit differently. When we think about resilience and growth and the role that innovation plays for that, but there's a mindset shift that needs to happen. We need to think a little bit differently with regards to innovation. Instead of doing innovation in our back room, we need to do innovation with our ecosystem in an open innovation mindset. And this is where we're going to see a lot of the benefits that I had described in this presentation to you, right? And so this leads to, I need to find a way to engage with an innovation ecosystem to start to exploit some of the inventions that I have access to and start thinking differently about how I can apply these, a little at first and then a whole lot to really take advantage of the nature of innovation as a whole. And guess what? You're sitting in one of the world's, certainly one of North America's most vibrant tech ecosystems to do that in. It has extremely high density of talent, and certainly is one of the reasons that I've remained in this ecosystem for such a long time as well. Anyway, just something for you to think about. There was a lot of information here. I will share this presentation, and of course this is in video this is in video mode as well, so you'll be able to watch this again and again and again, I hope. Feel free to certainly reach out for any additional discussions that you may want to have with us. We're certainly excited about the opportunity that not only the region can provide for our growth of our partners, but just innovation in general. This has been something that I've been doing, since a very early age, and this is certainly a time that is really starting to bloom with regards to change. It's said that AI is the next electricity, and we saw how much electricity changed the world. So I'm really quite interested to see how the adoption of AI and all the things that are going to exist around that are going to influence change, not only within your companies, but in the world and society itself. Anyway, thank you so much today, and I hope you have a great rest of the conference. And please feel free to reach out for any thoughts or questions afterwards.